World of Warcraft is one of those games that most people have played at some point in their life. It's hugely successful as an MMORPG, and part of that accessibility comes from the art direction. The game is low poly, the textures are colourful and painterly, and when combined together with fun gameplay mechanics, it's no surprise that 20 years later, the game is still in the top leagues of the MMO genre. As a games artist, the hand-painted workflow has always amazed me. I'm not well versed in art fundamentals when it comes to painting, and I can't draw, but I can probably turn your self-portrait into a goblin if you were to hire me. Needless to say, working on a game such as World of Warcraft as a 3D artist requires the ability of deception. You have to be able to sell basic, blocky and grey meshes as complex, detailed and colourful set pieces. And in today's video, we're going to explore the workflow of how textures are created for World of Warcraft. My name's EMC3D, and this is the Why Does X Look Like This series, where I cover everything from 3D modelling, lighting, texturing, and art direction from video games. A big thank you to all the supporters on Patreon. You can support from £1 a month or join the channel membership tier for exclusive videos and monthly features. Details in the description below. In this breakdown by Fanny Vern, you can see that a high poly sculpt has been used to form the base of the texture to be painted on. With this workflow, you're sculpting the physical form of the texture in the format of a high poly mesh, meaning you're going to have a selection of baked maps based on the high poly mesh data to use as masks or overlays to achieve more control in the texture painting phase. The use of baked maps to generate texture detail is common now with programs such as Substance Suite and Marmoset Toolbag. However, matte caps from ZBrush are also a method of generating unique texture masks based on high poly data to be used in the texture painting process. Here's an example featuring the matte caps used to help create a stylized material by Fanny Vern. I've linked this tutorial in the comments below. The high poly mesh transfer maps do get baked, however, they aren't necessarily used in the game engine as separate texture slots to make up a shader, as is the case with most hyper-realistic games, because a lot of games that use a hand-painted art direction rely on the texture being readable in a flat lighting scenario, and that involves adding the lighting data to the texture itself. The highlights, shadows, ambient occlusion, pretty much the opposite of PBR and more aligned with the old school way of texturing for all things pre-PBR. The second method of texturing contrasts against the previous workflow we've just covered. In this example by Kate McKeat, every element of this texture has been hand-painted from scratch. So no use of high poly data to generate additional maps to feed into the diffuse, just straight up old school painting. Every brick, highlight and shadow carefully planned out by the artist. With this method, you're either painting directly onto a prop in a program like 3D Coat, or painting a tileable texture directly in a program such as Photoshop. The art fundamentals required for both of these methods is inspiring to witness, because the artist needs to be able to fake depth and lighting in an extremely low polygon environment. And when you hide the textures in a game such as World of Warcraft, you're mostly going to be looking at primitive grey forms, and it is the texturing that brings you into that world of believability, into that world of Warcraft. So, where can you start learning how to do this stuff? Well, the first thing I'd point you towards is the amazing resources of Michael Vicente, aka Orb. He released a set of brushes and matte caps around 10 years ago, but are still some of the most used resources in the realm of stylized game development. Link in the description below. Once you use these resources, it'll start to unlock multiple gateways into adding stylization to your high poly sculpts. Secondly, for starting your meshes in a high poly format in order to drive the stylization of your game resolution mesh, any resources from Fanny Vern would be a great start, as the fundamentals from these tutorials and guides can be used in any other medium. And what about the hand-painted with no high poly workflow? Well, a great place to start would be Stylized Station. This channel hosts various amazing artists from the industry and showcases their workflows in video format. Check out the featured artists in these videos and follow their work and portfolios. There's a lot that can be learned from the breakdowns they post, and they may have their own tutorials that cover the workflows in greater length.